everybody. Welcome back to the Y'all Are Crazy Ranch podcast. We are excited today because we're going to be talking about something that's so important to us, and it's about building the life and legacy that you want.
Yeah, and I think what the stuff we're going to share today is going to, not saying build the life we've built, build the life you want. Everybody wants a different life. Everybody has different goals and priorities and things they like. But a lot of people don't build the life that they want.
Intentionally. And intentionality is the key. You know, like you said, not everybody wants what we want and what we've built. And that's great because we don't need a bunch of people like us in the world. Everybody wants different things. I know sometimes for us, people are like, well, I'd like to have what you guys have had. But when they see what it's taken to get here, they're not willing to do that. Yeah. So if you want something different, you'll build your life differently. We've been very, I would say, obsessed lately about legacy because once you get almost 40, like we are, we're both about to turn 39, you start realizing how short life is.
Yeah. We're not 40 yet.
Not yet, but we're approaching. Yeah. So it's like you realize how short life is, and then it makes you think about, like, what am I creating? What am I leaving behind? What am I doing that matters? What kind of legacy am I leaving? So we've just been really intentional, I think, about that lately.
Yeah, and those are like deep questions. And I'll ask people every once in a while those kind of questions, and it always shocks me how people have never thought about it. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, man, I don't know. I never thought about that. You know, I'll ask them a question. What do you think it's going to, how many grandkids do you hope you have one day? Well, I don't know. I've never thought about that. You know, and it's like, oh, man, you know, like we hope we have a whole bunch. And we hope we get to do this and do this and do this. And, we're
already talking to our kids about that. And our kids, they're like, okay. And obviously they're going to change their minds. Circumstances change. But I do think it's important to be intentional and have the conversations.
Yes. Yeah. And I think you got to put a lot of thought into the life that you want and design the life that you want to live. And sometimes we can get caught up and say that, well, I don't really have a choice. I got to do this. I got to go to work. I got to this. And it's like, man, you have more choice in the design of your life than you think you do. You know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You do. And I think especially as Americans, like we have so much potential for growth and so many opportunities, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you have to work hard to get there. You have to live your life intentionally. You can't just let life pass you by and then say, well, now I want to do this, because it might be too late to get where you want to go.
Yeah. I was listening, there's this podcast, and it's a Brian Buffini podcast, but it's he plays a recording of Earl Nightingale, which was from the 1950s. And Earl had recorded it for his sales team, and it went on a record, vinyl record. And it went like gold or platinum or whatever it is. It sold like over 1 million copies in a pretty short period of time back in the 50s.
Yes.
Which is pretty wild because you didn't have the internet and you downloaded it on Spotify or whatever. You had to go buy a physical. You couldn't order online and have a record shipped to your house. You had to go buy it and have a record player to play it. And so, but he talked a lot about, there's one clip where he said that people surveyed this many men and asked them, why do you get up and go to work in the morning? And almost none of them could answer the question.
Wow. I haven't heard this.
He's like, I don't know. We just get it because that's what we're supposed to do. And the point he was trying to make was there was no thought behind going to work. There's no intentionality. There's no design of your life. You just going to work because that's what you're supposed to do. And then you're just living, but there's no plan. There's no intentionality. Why are you at this job? What do you want to work towards? Do you want to work this job forever? Or do you want to use this one to get to this one? And anyway, the survey had showed that just people didn't really have a plan. They just went to work. It was interesting.
It is interesting. And I think when you know why you do something, it's obviously going to make you think through, okay, why am I doing this? What can I do differently? I just think so much of life is about intentionality and teaching your kids to be intentional about what they do. I've shared before, like with our kids, I tell them, you are where you are. So you might as well be happy where you are because you can't change where you are. If you are a kid, you're going to go to school every day. So let's make the best of that opportunity of going to school. I like our kids to like be put together each day. I don't like them. I do not allow pajama pants unless it's pajama day. I don't allow Crocs at school, church. And some might say like that's harsh, but I think when you dress put together, and I'm not saying our kids wear like suits every day, but I try to make sure they're put together. And I think as an adult, when you start your day and you're put together, you're going to be more productive that day. If you're a mom and maybe you are staying home that day and doing laundry and doing stuff around the house, taking care of kids, I still think if you at least put yourself together that day, you're going to be more productive at home. It's kind of crazy how that works. But if you know why you're doing it, and then you have a good outlook on it and you have a plan for the day, your productivity is going to soar.
You know, we could just let Benaiah design what everybody wears for the day.
It would be a win.
You know,
it would, as the kids would say, it would be fire.
It would be fire.
I have a funny Benaiah story.
Oh man!
So last night was homecoming here in our town at school, and Barlow was chosen to be the crown bearer. He's in kindergarten. So he wore his wrestling singlet. It was wrestling homecoming, and he wanted to wear a lot of his medals that he'd won. So we grabbed him off his medal rack, and he's like, okay, I'm going to wear these. He puts them on. He wears them. Benaiah sees him up there, and he said, you did not win those 2 medals. He had like 8 on.
Yeah.
He's like, you didn't win those 2. And Barlow's like, what do you mean they were on my medal rack? He's like, no, you got 2nd and 4th in that tournament.
Yeah.
I got 3rd and this in this tournament. And he knows exactly what place every single one of them got at every tournament. And he knew those medals weren't Barlow's.
Yeah.
And so he took them back from him. He put them on. He said, you did not earn those medals. And so Benaiah wore the 2 medals that were his the rest of the night. So there would be no confusion because, Barlow can't wear those if he didn't earn them in his mind.
And that's true. Benaiah's not wrong,
I said, did you take those back from Barlow? He said, yes, he didn't earn them.
Benaiah is just so funny. It's
very logical.
Yeah. Yeah, and the wrestling tournament last weekend, Benaiah was in this match, and Benaiah is on a good path of getting better every weekend, but he's still not like, winning first place at tournaments or nothing like that yet. But and he's at the bottom of his age bracket. What is he wrestling? 8U, and he's 7.
Yes.
And he's in the open league, but he really should be in novice. But he did wrestle some tournaments, and so he can't be a novice. So he's had to take a lot of losses this year, but he's learning a bunch.
He's grown a lot. He's gotten so much better. I told him he is most improved of the year.
He is, and he had this match last weekend, and he was losing like 10-5. Like he was getting beat. The other kid was kind of dominating him, but then Benaiah ended up just taking him down and pinning him and got the win. And then he went up to you and said, what did he say? He said, I was going for the tech fall, but
he said,
the spread was too big, so I had to pin him.
Yeah, he said, I looked at the score and it was 10-5, so I couldn't get the tech fall, so I just had to pin him.
Yeah, and it's like, and for those that don't know, a tech fall means you got to get ahead of the other guy by 15 points at least, at 15 points, and then it's a tech fall. Well, he was losing 10-5. I mean, he'd had to get up to what, 25 points to tech fall. Yeah, which you get 3 points for a takedown. 4 points if it would. I mean, it's like that wasn't going to happen. But the fact that that's what he was thinking,
he's like,
is
had
hilarious.
to go for the pin. That's all I could do.
Yeah, that's all I could do. And it's like, well, okay, you won the match. So anyway, he's
Love
funny.
him.
But to get back on track on designing the life you want. Like one of the things I would recommend you do if you're married, to do this with your spouse, or you both do it yourself and then come together and discuss it. But I would encourage you to get a piece of paper or a journal. I would encourage you to get a journal, but get something that you can write with and write on, and just write the question, what do I want my life to be like? And then think about it, and then just start writing, right? And there's a lot of science behind this. If you're like me, you'll look at that question and stare at it until the actual answer comes, and you'll sit there forever and not come up with nothing. But what I've learned is you just have to start writing it out. And a lot of times those first 5 or 6 things you write of what you want your life to be like might not really be true. You might get done and go, nah, that's kind of dumb. I don't really want that. But by the time you get to 7 or 8, it's like you're writing some gold down, And so I would encourage you to write out how you want to design your life, and then get with your spouse and share with each other, and then maybe even do the exercise together.
You got to be on the same page.
Yeah, you have to be. And part of that is designing the life you want.
That
right?
reminded me when you were talking about, it was on a Brian Buffini episode, and he was interviewing Lou Holtz, the football coach from Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's where he spent a lot of his time.
Yeah, and so he was talking about how his wife got sick, and he wanted to give her something to look forward to. And he started writing down all the things that they still wanted to do in life. And he wrote down 100 things. And they seemed very outlandish. And it was just kind of crazy things, honestly, some of it. And I think and so, but he's like, once we started writing all those down, wrote 100 things, he's like, at this point, I think they had hit every one of them.
Yeah.
And it was there's a lot of power in writing things down, dreaming together, maybe dreaming a little bit of crazy things that might not make sense to most people, and maybe you don't hit all those, and I think that's okay too.
100% it's okay, because at least you hit it, most of them, you're going to be a lot further ahead than where you started. The same thing on that Earl Nightingale podcast. The podcast title is called "The Strangest Secret," and man, you guys got to go listen to it. It's so good. But he talks about, if you don't have a plan in life, right? He's like, if you have a captain at the helm of a ship and you set out for sail in the harbor with no plan, he's like, no rudder, no plan. He's like, the chances are that ship will never make it out of the harbor, right? But if you've got a plan and a map of where you're going and you get on track, chances are you're going to end up where you're going, And designing the life you want takes a lot of intentionality. But you'll be surprised at how powerful it can be if you just stop long enough to ask yourself the question and realize what you truly want.
That's very true. Yeah. I heard a good illustration this week, and I haven't told you this yet. So you know how God told Noah to build the ark,
yeah,
and He gave him exact specifications. Which, when you're reading it, it kind of gets a little boring because it's like, why do I care about all these things and length and width? I mean, it was very detailed, but it said you'll notice that God never told him to put a steering wheel in the boat.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It said perhaps the scariest thing about Noah's Ark was not that there was a devastating flood that covered the earth, or that they were trapped in there for 40 days while it rained and longer until it receded enough for them to get out. But the scariest part perhaps is that they had zero control. They didn't even have a steering wheel to guide them from hitting rocks and, actually maybe going where they thought it needed to go. They just had to trust God.
Man, I never even thought about that.
I thought that was super powerful.
Yeah, you're just floating.
You're just floating and saying, God, you told us to build this.
Yeah.
And you're going to take care of us. And I think that's a really big deal as we talk about this, because the Bible says, a man makes his plans, but the Lord directs his steps.
Yes.
Now, I do think it's important for us to make plans.
You have to.
We have to make plans. And I think God wants us to live a life of intentionality. You look at people in the Bible that God used mightily and blessed mightily. King David, Daniel, Moses, they had plans and really big callings on their life. They didn't just walk around aimlessly.
Yes.
However, God directed their steps. We don't know necessarily what next week's going to hold, but we know God's with us and he's going to carry us through and he's going to be our help and our comforter. And I think when we know he's with us and he is directing the ship, okay? It's like that Jesus Take the Wheel song.
Yeah.
Like he's got the wheel. However, like Noah had to build the ark. Mm-hmm. God just didn't say, I'm just going to whisk you away and keep you in a little umbrella safe. Like Noah had to, I have read that Noah spent 100 years building the ark. Now, people lived longer back then, obviously. I think
it'd take a long time to build that thing by hand.
It was a long time ago, and they did. And
they didn't have no DeWalt tools back then.
And he probably had helpers, but he got made fun of. The Bible tells us this. He got made fun of. People laughed at him. I don't even know at that point. There obviously never been a flood like that, but had there even been like much rain? Did they even know what this was? And did they have any need for a boat at this time? So God provided for Noah and kept his family safe, but Noah had to actually intentionally build the ark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did, and had to have a plan. And so designing the life you want, you might go through an exercise of writing down the life you want and realize you're not living the life that you really want.
Right.
Well, that's a powerful exercise and a powerful moment. And then now that'll spark a conversation with what adjustments do I need to make, or do we need to make to start living the life that we want? That's where, now you can start making positive changes. If you don't ever do that in your life, you're just going to go through life aimlessly and not live a life of intentionality or what you want and get to the end and it's too late.
Yeah, and if we talk about this, if we can speak to people in your 20s and 30s, those are your years to really establish yourself in your career, building wealth, and just like getting yourself set up for life. So don't waste your 20s and 30s on like having fun, partying, like basically the world's going to lie to you. Like, sorry to say that, but they are. The world's going to tell you need to get married later in life. Wait to have kids. Just enjoy your life. YOLO. And like, that is such a lie.
It is a lie. It is a lie. And the thing is, it's not like you got to live and you don't have fun. That's not what we're saying. But man, you got to have intentionality and design. And then I think if we kind of switch gears into the legacy part, thinking about if you've got kids, what kind of legacy do you want to, even if you don't have kids, how do you want to be remembered? What kind of legacy and impact do you want to have on this world before you go out?
And what really matters? I think when you do get older, you start thinking about, well, that didn't even matter. What does matter? Yeah,
and as a parent, our decisions matter. How our kids, the things that our kids see us do or see us not do, they're very, very important. And some parents might not think that it matters. You might think as a parent, I'm just going to get divorced and find me a new spouse, and then I'll be a lot happier and have more fun and this, that, and the other. And you don't realize the effect that it has on your kids. And you think, it's not that big a deal. I'll get remarried, she'll get remarried, and, we'll take care of them well, raise them well. No, that has a forever generational impact, And what kind of legacies are you leaving your kids by having that kind of behavior? Not a good one, right? Or if faith is important to you, but yet you don't take your kids to church every Sunday, you don't read the Word with them, you don't prioritize the Bible or anything like that, are you building a legacy that you want?
Right.
You might not be. You know what I mean?
But how can you start today? How can you make that switch and make it better? We don't want this podcast to condemn or make people feel guilty.
No.
We want it to encourage you to like take stock and then work on building the life that you want.
And that's a good point too, because like when we are teaching things like this, as the teacher, it helps us like go back and do it again. right? Like we're speaking to ourselves anytime we do one of these podcasts. You know what I mean? When you're teaching this kind of subjects, it makes you go back and do it again. So we don't like have it figured out. This is a never ending journey.
Right.
You're gonna design something and you're gonna get going that direction, and God might speak and do something. Want you to do something different, then you're gonna go this way. But so it's not a thing that you do once and it's done and it's over. It's a constant pursuit, and you have to pay attention to that, and never quit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I had a vision board that I'd created, and I hung it on my big mirror in our room, and our kids saw it without me like showing it to them. And so Briley and Boa and our oldest two were both like, well, I want to make vision boards. And so I let them get on Canva on my iPad, and I kind of showed them like, here's how you put pictures in, and they created their own vision boards. So now they have their own for the year, and they're hanging up in their rooms. And that's just a cool example of, it doesn't have to be difficult. You can make it fun, and your kids watch what you do, and they're going to want to do it too.
They are, and our kids watch what you do more than they hear what you say. You know, one of my favorite quotes a guy shared with me last year was like, "What do you say? I can't hear what you're saying because your actions are speaking so loudly." And it's like, ooh, I hope my actions are good, because if they're not, that's not good. You know, your kids see what you do, and as a parent, we got to pay attention to that, because if we've got bad habits, and we all have some bad habits, you know, it's convicting, and it's a never-ending trying to improve. You know, and we have to just always be trying to become a better version of ourselves and focused on our legacy. And if what we're doing isn't leaving a legacy that we want, then we need to make a change.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And if your habits right now are not what you want them to be, and this can even be little things, okay? I've told several of my friends lately, instead of listening to true crime podcast every day, listen to podcasts that actually feed your mind and fuel you. I had a friend this week that was like, I wish that I had a better vocabulary and like could speak better. And I said, well, do you read very much? She's like, never. And I said, okay, I think if you start reading, it will improve your vocabulary, because you're putting more words into your mind, which is going to make more words come out. And I said, but you have to make it a habit, and you have to be intentional about reading, especially as you get started, before it becomes a habit. And then you'll be like, okay, I love this. And then it becomes habitual, and then you will start having a larger vocabulary.
Yeah.
So it can be little things like that. It doesn't have to be big things.
No, it doesn't. And like I said earlier, in life, I think it's a never-ending pursuit of designing the life you want, and designing, you know, making sure you're leaving the right legacy. And anytime you make a plan, I'd say very rarely do plans go as you planned 100%.
Right.
Almost never, honestly. I know in business, I'll make a business plan every year. Hardly ever does it go exactly like I planned.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. If you have a plan and life throws you curveballs, you can adjust it, but at least you got going in a direction with intention.
You have to know where you're trying to go.
You
got to have a target.
Yes, and you're going to screw up. We're going to screw up and stuff like that. But if you've got the plan, you can always course correct and make adjustments as need be. But I just can't encourage it enough to put some thought and intentionality and write out some stuff about the life that you want to live for you and your family, and
if you
and
want
the
to get
legacy you
closer
want to
to
leave.
God, you might want to go to put it on your plan. You're going to start going to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
If you want to spend more quality time together, well, go ahead and plan that vacation this year that you want to take with your kids. Put it on the calendar. Put the deposit down.
Yeah, some of these like ties into that episode we did about goals, right? And it's like when you write out the life that you want to design for you and your family, well, then you got to put together some action steps of what you got to do that. It might be a habit you got to start creating. It might be something to put on the calendar. It might be to book a vacation. Who knows what it is, but then it starts the action plan, and it's got to be detailed, and then you got to have a deadline, right?
That's right.
All that comes back into play on the actual how-to do it.
I always like to give listener feedback. And one of my friends, who's one of my agents, Carrie, told me that she's loving our podcast. Like, she's learning a lot. And she said, I listened to your goals podcast. And she said, I had my boys set goals for themselves. And they're both teenagers. And she said, one of her boys said, I want to be 6 foot tall. And she's like, well, you can't really like make yourself grow. So she's like, it has to be achievable. They said it has to be achievable. And he's like, okay, well, I'll eat more protein. And I'll, have more calcium in my diet, and I'm going to do this. And she's like, I couldn't talk him out of it. He was very determined he's going to be 6 foot tall. And, it's like, well, maybe, hopefully he will, because he wants to do that because he's a big athlete. But even if he doesn't, he's going to get stronger, and he's going to get healthier. And all the things he's doing to try to get to 6 foot tall are going to be good for him. Yeah,
and it sounds to me like he's going to give himself the best chance.
That's right.
He's going to make sure he has his nutrition right. Well, that's going to have an impact on his growth. And
absolutely.
I think that stuff is great. And even if you write down a goal like as an adult and it doesn't quite make a lot of sense, that's okay. And the fact there's a lot of power in the mind and your thoughts. And Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Controlling your thoughts is a big, big deal. And this exercise will put those thoughts in your mind and get you going to problem solving and stuff like that. And whatever your goals are, and if it's your kids, don't be hard on your kids. Just let them pick the fact that they're writing something down, that is a win.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they're going to get better at it the more they do it too. So that's going to keep getting better, and their goals are going to get better and more accurate. So I think everybody's got to start. And I think doing them as a family is fun. Sharing them with your spouse, with your kids, gives you a little bit of accountability.
It does. And so, I don't know, if I were to put a bow on this podcast, I would just put a challenge out there to all of us fathers, okay? As fathers, me included, let's put a lot more effort into designing the life we want with our family. And let's put a lot more effort into designing the legacy you want to leave behind as a father, and let's kind of maybe hold each other accountable to doing that and putting a lot more effort into that. And don't go through life just willy-nilly and letting life blow you around everywhere and get to the end and realize, dadgummit, I didn't live the life I wanted to live, and I didn't leave the legacy I wanted to live. I hope none of us get to the end and have those feelings and thoughts.
Yeah, so create the life you want, create the life that you dream of, and don't forget to give God glory along the way.
Amen to that.
See you next time.
Next time.